All right, Raider Nation, let's talk business. The Silver and Black are coming off that preseason opener against Seattle, and while I'm not here to press the panic button just yet, there's no denying it. This roster has some holes that need filling if we're going to make real noise this year. I'm looking at what the front office, led by Pete Carroll and John Spytek, can realistically do in the coming days to shore things up. With the salary cap space that's available, we have to be smart, targeted, and aggressive. I'm going to walk you through the first of the 5 biggest needs on this roster, the kind of spots that could be the difference between grinding out a 9-win season and making a legitimate push toward January football. In the first area, I want to dive into sits in the defensive backfield, the nickel corner position. Now, I know some of you might hear corner and immediately think we're talking about an outside lockdown guy, but that's not what I mean. The Raiders actually feel pretty good about Eric Stokes, Darian Porter, and Cameron Richardson on the perimeter. The bigger question is in the slot, that inside coverage role, where you need quick reactions, fluid hips, and the ability to deal with shifty receivers and dangerous tight ends like to line up inside. Right now, Darnay Holmes is still fighting for his roster life. I've been encouraged by what I've seen from rookies like Q Blue Kelly and Greedy Vance, both in training camp and in that first preseason run, but there's a lack of proven depth here. Add in the fact that Jacorian Bennett is no longer part of the equation, and suddenly you start thinking about whether a veteran presence could stabilize things. That's where a guy like Stephon Gilmore comes into the conversation. No, I'm not saying you sign him and immediately force him to be a pure nickel corner. That's not the plan. What intrigues me is the idea of using him as a hybrid defensive back, a safety corner blend, something we've already seen the Raiders experiment with a lot this offseason. Gilmore's resume speaks for itself. Over a decade in the league, a Defensive Player of the Year award, multiple Pro Bowls, and a reputation for being one of the smartest DBs out there. Yes, last season he gave up a passer rating in the mid-90s, the highest of his career, but even if the speed has dipped a touch, his football IQ and leadership are assets. We've seen guys like Charles Woodson and Patrick Peterson extend their careers by adapting their role, and Gilmore could easily fit that mold. If that's not the move, there are other options worth at least discussing. Rasul Douglas has the size and instincts to play outside or inside in a pinch. Kendall Fuller has shown he can handle safety corner hybrid responsibilities. Troy Hill is another versatile veteran with past ties to members of this front office. But the main point here is that the Raiders can't get caught shorthanded in the nickel. In today's NFL, that position is essentially a starter. You're in sub-packages so much that your third corner is really a first stringer. Sliding over to the offensive side of the ball, let's talk about guard depth because after what we saw against Seattle, that's looking shaky. Coming into camp, I thought this was going to be a quietly solid unit. Jackson Powers-Johnson, in my mind, should be locked in as the starting right guard. The guy's a mauler, and even though he's dealing with a rib issue right now, the talent is obvious. But the depth behind the starters? That's a different story. Caleb Rogers struggled mightily in that preseason opener. Antonio Mafi has been running with the ones, but that's more a reflection of injuries than earned promotion. Alex Kappa is nursing something, and even though it's supposedly not long-term, his history of injuries is enough to make you nervous. That's why a player like Dalton Risner makes all the sense in the world. He started 81 games in the league. He can play both guard spots, and there's a built-in connection with assistant GM Brian Starr from their Denver days. Risner's coming off a stint in Minnesota where he battled through a back issue, but he's healthy now, and he's proven he can be a steady, reliable blocker. Bringing him in doesn't just give you a competent backup. It gives you insurance against more injuries and allows young draft picks to develop without being thrown into the fire before they're ready. At this point, he'd probably sign for something close to the veteran minimum, and the flexibility he provides at both guard positions is worth far more than that. The offensive line is the engine that makes this whole offense go. You can have Ashton Janney in the backfield, you can have your passing game clicking, but if the interior can't hold up, the whole thing sputters. We saw it late in that Seattle game. No running lanes, no push, no rhythm. That can't happen when the games start to count. Dalton Risner might not be the flashy name that moves headlines, but he could be one of those quietly crucial additions that pay off down the stretch. On the defensive front, another spot that caught my attention is the edge rotation. Max Crosby is Max Crosby. He's going to bring relentless energy and production. Tyree Wilson showed flashes, and I like his potential as a versatile tweener who can play on the edge or slide inside. But Malcolm Kuntz had a rough outing, and beyond that, you're relying on a mix of undrafted rookies, developmental guys, and veterans on the fringe. Charles Snowden struggled, and his availability is in question with possible suspension looming. If that happens, suddenly the depth chart gets dangerously thin. Enter Jadeveon Clowney. He's not the sack machine some thought he'd be coming out of college, but he's still an impact player with 15 sacks over the past 2 years and the ability to play multiple spots along the front. He's got history with Pete Carroll from 2019, when he played some of his best ball, and he'd fit seamlessly into the multiple front looks Patrick Graham likes to use. Clowney can stand up on the edge, he can set the edge against the run, and he can reduce inside on passing downs. Adding him wouldn't just be about getting after the quarterback. It would be about adding a disruptive presence who makes life easier for everyone else along the line. If Clowney's not an option, other veterans like Matthew Judon, Zadarius Smith, or Shaquille Barrett could be worth exploring, though some come with bigger price tags or health concerns. But the overarching theme here is the same as with nickel corner. Don't wait until you're desperate. If you know there's a potential depth issue, fix it now before you're scrambling midseason. The other big defensive concern is free safety. The Raiders brought in Terrell Edmonds recently, and I'm intrigued to see what he can do. Jamal Adams has actually looked surprisingly sharp at linebacker, but that's the key. He's not playing safety. Lonnie Johnson Jr. is out for a few weeks. Jeremy Chin is still learning the system. Thomas Harper barely saw the field against Seattle. Trey Taylor had a pick in practice, but struggled in game. There's a lot of uncertainty here, and in a Pete Carroll defense that likes to blitz, your safeties are often left in high-pressure situations. If the pass rush doesn't get home, that secondary is exposed. That's the foundation for where we are right now, addressing nickel corner, guard depth, edge rotation, and free safety. And there's still one position I think might be the most urgent of them all, the one I'll hit next. But it's clear that if the Raiders want to compete, not just in September, but into the cold months, the roster needs a little more reinforcement. The preseason is all about identifying weaknesses before they cost you real games. And after that first look against Seattle, the picture is getting clearer. And now we come to what I think is the most alarming need of all, the defensive tackle spot. I hate that we're even here talking about it, because coming into the offseason, I thought the interior defensive line was going to be a pillar of this defense. The plan looked solid on paper. Christian Wilkins was supposed to be the centerpiece, the guy who could wreck blocking schemes, create chaos in the backfield, and free up the linebackers and safeties to fly around. The rest of the rotation was meant to be a healthy mix of experience and upside, with young players learning alongside veterans who knew how to play the position at a high level. But as we sit here in August, the reality is far from that vision. The depth is paper thin, the injuries are piling up, and the guys who are actually on the field haven't shown they can consistently win in the trenches. If you watched that preseason game against Seattle or kept up with camp reports, you already know the names in question. John Jenkins didn't play up to the standard you need from a rotational interior defender. Keandre Coburn hardly saw the field. Thomas Booker, an undrafted rookie from SMU, has been thrust into first-team reps not because he's been so dominant, but because Adam Butler has missed practices dealing with a personal matter. And speaking of Butler, the team needs him back sooner rather than later because right now, the top 2 defensive tackles in camp are him and Booker, and that gap between them and the rest of the group is huge. Lucky Fodu is in a walking boot. Zach Carter has looked like a back-end depth piece at best. The truth is, beyond Wilkins, Butler, and maybe Jenkins, you don't have a group you can feel good about rolling into the regular season with. Some of these guys might struggle to even make practice squads elsewhere, which tells you how far away they are from being true NFL contributors. That's a massive problem for a defense that is built from the inside out. If you know anything about Pete Carroll's philosophy, it starts with winning up front. You control the line of scrimmage, you dictate the game. And this Raiders defense, with the way it's been constructed, counts on that front to get home with 4. The length and athleticism at linebacker and in the secondary are meant to complement that pass rush. If the defensive tackles can't collapse the pocket or hold their ground against the run, the whole structure falls apart. Suddenly your blitzes don't get home, your coverage busts start showing up, and quarterbacks get way too comfortable. That's why I'd pick up the phone and call Quinton Jefferson right now. Is he the perfect solution? No. He's 32 years old, and you're not signing him to be an every-down star. But he knows Pete Carroll's system. He spent 5 seasons playing for him in Seattle. He's got chemistry with Max Crosby from their time together in 2021. He's versatile enough to play as a 3 technique or even slide outside when needed. Most importantly, he's a professional who knows how to prepare and execute, which is exactly what this young defensive tackle group is lacking. And the truth is, at this stage of the preseason, you're not going to find an all-pro waiting to be picked up off the street. The goal is to add someone who can stabilize the rotation, give you 20 to 30 solid snaps a game, and mentor the young guys. Jefferson fits that bill. He's also been in the building recently. The Raiders already brought him in for a workout a couple of weeks ago. That familiarity matters, especially when time is short and the season is right around the corner. If Jefferson isn't the move, you could look at other veterans. Linval Joseph is a massive body who can plug the middle and still give you quality reps in limited duty. William Golston has years of experience and a history with John Spytek from their Tampa Bay days, even if he's pushing his late 30s. There's also the possibility of a bigger swing, and here's where I circle back to Jadeveon Clowney. Yes, he's primarily an edge, but his ability to line up inside and disrupt from the 3-tech spot means you could solve 2 problems with 1 signing. That kind of versatility is invaluable when you're juggling injuries and roster spots. The frustrating part of all this is that defensive tackle shouldn't be the glaring weakness it is right now. It's supposed to be the kind of position where you rotate fresh legs and wear down opponents, not scramble to figure out who can even hold their ground. This isn't about depth for depth's sake. It's about maintaining the integrity of the entire defense. The front has to set the tone, and right now, it's just not good enough. That's why I put it as the number 1 need ahead of safety, ahead of edge, ahead of offensive guard. Because if you can't control the line of scrimmage, it doesn't matter how good your corners are, how talented your linebackers are, or how creative your blitz packages get. Teams will run right at you, quarterbacks will step up in the pocket, and you'll spend Sundays chasing the game instead of dictating it. And let's be real, the longer you wait, the harder it gets to fix. This isn't Madden where you can just slide a trade through the system. Veterans want to know their role before the season starts. Rookies need time to adjust to the scheme. Every practice you go through without addressing it is one less opportunity to get the right mix in place. That's why the front office has to act now. From the outside looking in, it might seem like overreaction to get worked up about defensive tackle depth in mid-August. But those who've been around this game long enough know that the cracks you see in the preseason often become full-blown weaknesses when the real games begin. We've already watched injuries chip away at the position, and it's naive to think it won't happen again. The NFL is a war of attrition, and the teams that last are the ones that prepare for the inevitable. Rumors are swirling across the NFL landscape as the Las Vegas Raiders appear to be positioning themselves for a major shakeup in their defensive lineup. The buzz centers on the potential acquisition of Jadeveon Clowney, a name synonymous with relentless defensive pressure and game-changing plays. Sources close to the team suggest that the Raiders are aggressively pursuing the veteran defensive end to bolster their defensive front, aiming to transform their pass rush capabilities and overall defensive presence. Clowney's reputation precedes him. Known for his explosiveness off the edge and his ability to disrupt quarterbacks, his addition could signal a dramatic shift in the Raiders' defensive strategy. This move, if it comes to fruition, would not only send a message across the league, but also energize a fan base hungry for dominant defense. The Raiders have struggled at times in containing opposing offenses, and the prospect of Clowney joining their ranks has ignited conversations among analysts and fans alike. The whispers around the league hint at a team ready to make bold moves, and Clowney's availability is seemingly a perfect match for their ambitions. Although nothing is confirmed, The possibility alone has sparked intrigue and speculation about how this veteran's presence could elevate the Raiders' defense to new heights. The intrigue surrounding Jadeveon Clowney's potential arrival in Las Vegas has generated a palpable excitement that transcends the usual off-season chatter. Observers note that the Raiders have been methodically targeting upgrades on their defensive line, and Clowney's skill set fits perfectly with what the coaching staff envisions for the upcoming season. His ability to consistently pressure quarterbacks, along with his experience in high-stakes games, could provide the Raiders with an invaluable asset. This rumored acquisition comes at a time when the team is looking to address gaps that have hindered their defensive efficiency, especially against dynamic offensive schemes. Analysts speculate that Clowney's presence could force opponents to rethink their offensive game plans, knowing they face a relentless edge rusher who can change the momentum in an instant. Moreover, his leadership qualities and veteran savvy could positively influence younger players on the roster, fostering a more cohesive and aggressive defensive unit. The notion that Clowney might don the Raiders' colors has fans buzzing with anticipation, imagining a defense that combines speed, strength, and strategic cunning. While the details remain speculative, the possibility of this acquisition is enough to make the Raiders a team to watch closely in the coming months. Talk around the league has also focused on the potential financial and contractual maneuvers that the Raiders might undertake to secure Jadeveon Clowney services. Industry insiders suggest that the Raiders could be preparing a deal that balances competitive compensation with strategic roster management, aiming to maximize Clowney's impact without compromising future flexibility. Such a move would reflect the front office's commitment to assembling a team capable of competing at the highest level. The rumors imply that negotiations are delicate but progressing, with both sides interested in finding common ground. If the Raiders succeed in signing Clowney, it could set a precedent for how the team approaches free agency moving forward, demonstrating a willingness to invest in proven talent to accelerate their competitive timeline. Speculation also points to the possibility of Clowney thriving in the Raiders' defensive scheme, which emphasizes aggressive pass rushing and physicality at the line of scrimmage. This could be the perfect environment for him to showcase his abilities and make a significant impact. As talks continue, the anticipation builds, and every update fuels the rumor mill, leaving fans and analysts eagerly awaiting confirmation of what could be a game-changing signing. The potential addition of Jadeveon Clowney to the Las Vegas Raiders roster has also stirred conversations about the broader implications for the team's defensive identity. Clowney's reputation as a disruptive force aligns with the Raiders' aspirations to become a dominant defensive unit capable of dictating the pace of the game. Speculators argue that his arrival might influence the team's drafting and development priorities, shifting focus toward complementing his strengths with versatile defenders who can capitalize on the pressure he creates. This strategic realignment could transform the Raiders into one of the most feared defenses in the league. Furthermore, Clowney's impact might extend beyond the field, providing a psychological boost to the entire squad. His presence alone could intimidate opponents and elevate the team's confidence. Fans have taken to social media, expressing excitement and envisioning highlight reel plays fueled by Clowney's dynamic skill set. The mere rumor has already energized the Raiders community, reinforcing hope that the franchise is committed to building a winning culture. While concrete details remain under wraps, the possibility of Clowney joining Las Vegas has created a narrative of ambition and transformation, signaling that the Raiders could be on the cusp of a defensive renaissance. Lastly, the ripple effects of Jadeveon Clowney potentially joining the Raiders extend beyond just the immediate team dynamics, impacting the broader NFL ecosystem. Rivals within the division are reportedly taking note, reassessing their own defensive and offensive strategies in light of this possible acquisition. The speculation has even influenced betting lines and preseason predictions, with pundits adjusting expectations for the Raiders' competitiveness. Clowney's history of performing in critical moments could prove pivotal in tight games, potentially swinging the balance in the Raiders' favor during key matchups. The rumor has injected fresh energy into conversations about the Raiders' playoff prospects and long-term trajectory. for a franchise often characterized by bold moves and dramatic storylines. This possible signing fits perfectly into the narrative of resurgence and calculated risk-taking. The anticipation surrounding Clowney's future with the Raiders continues to build, as the football world watches closely to see if this high-profile defensive addition will materialize and usher in a new era of dominance for Las Vegas. Until an official announcement is made, the buzz will persist, feeding the hopeful speculation of fans eager to witness a new powerhouse rise from the desert. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our Las Vegas Raiders, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.